Hi, I'm Jilly G. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make fish tacos. Gluten-free, of course. But I'm using corn tortillas today, which I don't have them out yet. I'll get to those in a little bit. But I also have some flour and some spices that we'll be dredging our fish in. And these fish tacos are a little bit spicy, so I make a coleslaw to put on top of them. This is such a fast and easy dinner to make, or even a light lunch, but it really comes together so fast. And I've got my fish in the fridge as well till I'm ready for it. But I want to make my coleslaw first, and I'm actually going to start on the dressing first, and then we'll get to the ingredients for that. But right here I've got, about a quarter cup or so of mayonnaise, about a tablespoon or so of apple cider vinegar, and about a teaspoon of honey. And if you need to, you could always thin this out a little bit with some more apple cider vinegar. Once you get this all mixed together and you pour it over your cabbage, the cabbage starts to release some juices already, and that will thin out the dressing a little bit if you feel like it's too thick. And I have my little whisk, but I'm just using this spoon. Normally when I make a coleslaw, I will add salt and pepper to it, either to the coleslaw itself or to my dressing. But because my fish is going to be really spicy, I'm not going to add any seasoning to the coleslaw. So what I'm going to do first is get my cabbage cut up, and then I'm going to grate in some carrots. And then I've got 2 small heads of cabbage. Well, they're not even full heads of cabbage, but this is about a half of a small head of green cabbage, and then probably less than half of a red cabbage. And they're pretty small, but I really like the combination of red and green cabbage. And then what I do is I usually cut it in pretty small pieces. I feel the same way about my coleslaw that I do about salad. I don't like to have really big chunks, especially with this coleslaw where we're going to be putting it on a taco. I like it to be a little bit on the smaller side, so not exactly finely chopped, but pretty well chopped. Jeez, just going all over the place. And it's always so amazing to me when I look at a head of cabbage and I think that's not enough. And even this little tiny bit of a red cabbage. And I still think that's not enough. But once you cut it up, you think, what am I going to do with all of this coleslaw? But I love coleslaw. And you don't even have to make this into tacos. I love it as tacos. But if you had some gluten-free bread or some gluten-free buns, you could for sure make this into a fish sandwich with the coleslaw on top as well. And I wish I could say that this cabbage was from my garden, but my cabbage is not quite ready yet. And then I just kind of go through and make sure I don't have any really big pieces of cabbage here. And I might even need a bigger bowl. And then I've just got 2 carrots. You don't have to do coleslaw like I'm doing it. You could just do cabbage by itself. You don't have to put carrots in. But I really like the addition of carrots, or whatever you like to put in coleslaw. There's my carrots. And you could even save yourself some more time in the kitchen by buying a pre-shredded or pre-packaged coleslaw mix. And then you wouldn't have to cut up all of your coleslaw. But I actually like to make it myself. It's a little bit cheaper, and I actually find that it lasts a little bit longer. And I really think that bowl is too small, but we'll see. And if you're thinking of leaving because you don't like fish, and you certainly don't want to have fish in a taco, you can make this recipe with chicken. And with the smallest spoon known to man to stir a coleslaw, I'm just going to get in there and get it stirred together. and probably make a mess in the process, and that's just fine. Do your best, or get a bigger bowl. And if you haven't already, go ahead and like this video. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Even if you don't like fish tacos. I'm showing you how to make a coleslaw. It's actually mixing in pretty good with this little tiny spoon and a too small bowl. Okay, that's looking really good. I'm gonna stick this in the fridge and let it just kind of sit together. And here is my fish. Move everything aside. Clean up a little bit. Actually, let me clean up a little bit better. So for the fish, all we need is, of course, fish. I've got some cod here. You could use whatever fish you like. I've made this recipe before with tuna. I've made it before with catfish. And I've made it before with cod. I've also made it before with halibut. All of those are so good with this recipe. I've never tried it with salmon before, but if salmon is your favorite, by all means use that. But usually any firm white fish is what works best in this particular recipe. And when I say tuna, I don't mean tuna fish from a can, actual like tuna fillets. Of course, I love this with any kind of fish because I like fish. Again, if you don't like fish, use chicken, use pork, something like that. These spices are just basic spices for any kind of taco. And so what we've got for spices, well, I've got about a tablespoon of my gluten-free flour. And then in this bowl, I have 2 teaspoons of paprika, 1 teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of thyme, 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 1/2 teaspoon each of salt and pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. If I had onion powder, I would add some onion powder into this mixture as well, but all I have is onion flakes. And this is a much bigger pan than what we need it for, but I really like to get this all mixed around. This recipe is so easily doubled. And I should have turned my frying pan on. I'm going to go about medium-high heat in my cast iron skillet, and I've got, maybe 3 or 4 tablespoons of oil. I don't want to deep fry these, but just lightly fry them. You could also bake these in the oven if you wanted to. What I've done in the past with baking these is I either put them on some foil or on a cooling rack just like this if they're big enough pieces, and then you can bake them and they do get a little bit crispy. And I know this doesn't look like enough spices for the fish that we've got. This was about, 2 4-ounce fillets of cod. And I've sliced them into these little slices here. I just find it's easier once they're fried to layer them on your taco. But you could fry 1 whole fillet and then slice it after. But I also like to cut it up because then all sides get coated with this spice mixture. And I've also done this recipe before using cornflake crumbs as a breading. If you saw my cornflake chicken video, you'll know how to do that kind of breading. But that works really good and you get a really crunchy coating on your fish. And if I use that, then I will bake it. But because this is just flour and spices, I am using the frying pan today. So you just take your piece of fish and put it in your spices. And there's really nothing to it at all. You just toss it around in your spices. Make sure all sides get coated. And then I'm just going to set these pieces up here. Move that all down here. That way you don't have to get an extra plate. I've tried to cut my fish pieces in similar sizes. They're not, but you try. That way they all cook at the same rate. That one is certainly smaller than the rest. And another really useful tip is if you double this recipe while you're frying in batches, because you don't want to crowd the pan, you could have the oven on and let them stay warm in the oven while you're frying the rest of your fish. And this is going to be the perfect amount of spices. Make sure all sides are coated. So all of my fish pieces are coated. I'm going to spread them out. I've got them stacked there, but I'm going to spread them out a little bit. Move closer to my frying pan. And it's not quite hot enough yet, which means I can clean up a little bit while my oil heats up. I've turned my heat down because my oil is starting to smoke. I have some little tongs. And then we'll just start frying our fish. You don't want to crowd the pan. And I've got some tortillas here that I'm going to put in the oven, and I'll turn on the broiler, but not just yet. Be careful. I got out my splatter guard. Be careful so your fish doesn't fall apart. And because some of my breading is sticking to my pan, I'm just going to scrape this off before I fry my next batch. And now for the rest of our fish. Turn on the broiler. Some of my fish is in big pieces for a taco, but that's okay. And I forgot to put a paper towel underneath them to absorb some extra grease. And that's also okay. And I've got my coleslaw. This is how fast this meal comes together. It is almost done. Give my coleslaw a stir here. Check on my tortillas. You don't have to broil your tortillas. I find it's a really fast, easy way to heat them up. You can get them as crispy as you like, and then it would be more of a tostada. Grease always splatters everywhere. And I've warmed up my tortillas just enough to get them warm. And some of my fish fell apart, and that's just fine. So just get yourself a couple of tortillas, and I'll use some of these pieces of fish that fell apart a little bit, even the little crispy bits that fell off. Get some of our coleslaw, however much you like. Maybe a little more over here. Need to move my tortillas out of the way. You could always have a side dish. Any kind of side dish goes well with tacos, or even just chips and salsa. Let's give it a bite. That spice mixture on this fish is just the right amount of heat. And the coleslaw is just perfect to help cool it off if it's too spicy for you. I always find that when I'm eating tacos, once you start, you can't put them down. They'll kind of fall apart, and all of your filling sometimes falls out. So once you start eating, you just have to keep going. So messy. So good. And if you watched my strawberry lemonade video, you'll know what to do with lemon peels to get this oily fish smell out of your house. You could even sprinkle some lemon on here, but really so good. And as you can see, I've got a lot more coleslaw than fish, but don't worry, I'll eat it. But so good. Let me know if you like fish tacos. Let me know what you like to put on them. Maybe you have something else besides coleslaw, or maybe you have a different spice mixture that you really like. Let me know. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions or comments, let me know, and I'll see you on the next one.